Howdy folks, I'm Wacky Wolverine, wonderingly wowing wild wolves.
I'm Amber.
And here are more wild wolves for us to wow. They're wowed because we've got adamantinian claws. Let's get started.
Yeah, I don't think that's the kind of Wolverine they're talking about.
And folks, we have a live stream coming up on Friday. We hope to see you then. For more information, please see the end of the video. Let's get started. Alright folks, and our first letter is titled, Am I a Jerk for Not Giving My Stepsister Half of Her Mother's Life Insurance? Hello, this is actually happening to my husband right now, but he asked me to post this. He doesn't go on Reddit, but he does like me to read him some of the stories from this sub. So my husband, a male 47, had a stepmom who is 81 and just recently passed away at the beginning of March. His father, who she was married to, passed away when my husband was 19. He died of cancer and knew that it was coming, so he revised his will for his then wife and his only child, my husband. The will was a little unusual, and it stated that the home my husband's father owned would belong to both my husband and his current wife. However, his wife would be allowed to be the sole resident until she passed or decided to move out. Then the sole ownership would go to my husband. His wife was not allowed to will the home to her children or relatives. I'm not sure the term for this. It's like she owned it, but she didn't really fully own it. The reason behind this was that my husband's father was rather vindictive. He didn't care for his ex-wife very much, my husband's mother, and he didn't like his own stepkids either. So, in the chance that he passed while my husband was still under the age of 18, his ex-wife would have no sway over his son or the house, seeing as his current wife would have it. And her kids would never have it when she passed away, as it would go to my husband. When his father passed away, his stepmother gathered up a few of his things into garbage bags and left them on the porch of his dad's house for him and wouldn't let him inside. She also wouldn't let him have his TV, his pictures, his video games, or his childhood toys. He's sure that those things went to her grandkids. He said that it was the last time she spoke to him, and her last words to him were, "The TV stays." So that was 28 years ago. Now today, his stepmother has died. Her daughter, a female in her 60s, tried to and unsuccessfully get half of the house. She had no claim, according to the lawyers that she spoke to. So now there's a little bit of bad blood between her and my husband, but he's trying to remain amicable. Her mother just passed away, and while he didn't like her, it was her mother. However, we were contacted by his late stepmother's insurance company. Because she didn't name a beneficiary on the policy, my husband is entitled to half of the payout. We don't know how much it is yet. His stepsister is furious and thinks that it's unfair. She wants my husband to collect his half and give it to her. He is torn. He knows his stepmother kept all of his father's life insurance, even though she was trusted to give some to him. She kept most of his belongings and kept him out of his father's home. So he is bitter. Legally, the money is his, but he feels morally it might not be. His stepmother hated him, and she would never have named him on her policy. Would he be the jerk if he kept the money? All right, folks, what do you think?
No, not the jerk. It's payment for all her mistreatment over the years. It sounds like OP's husband was denied his possessions and money from his father that was rightfully his.
Yeah.
And so this is recompense.
Yeah, well, I mean, also, I think that he would have grounds to sue the estate to collect on any life insurance or whatnot that his father would have given him. So I think that the stepsister might even be getting off a little easy here, right? Because who knows how much money she actually owes to him, especially considering interest and everything like that, because oftentimes the courts will have these things paid back with interest. So I wouldn't be so quick to give away half of the money here. I think that given the circumstances, OP's husband is not in the wrong.
Right. And I mean, it doesn't sound like he has a close relationship with his stepsister anyway. You know, like, yeah, this is going to kind of burn bridges, but, you know, if that's not a relationship he's concerned about maintaining, I wouldn't be too worried about it.
Well, even if it is a relationship that he wants to maintain, she needs to understand the reality of the situation. And the reality of the situation is that she stole from him, and that's not good, right? Like, just because he was 18 didn't give her an entitlement to the property that he had inside of that house. And the fact that she stole his property is still theft.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, if he had been able to call the police or known to be able to call the police at that time, he would have been able to retrieve a lot more of his stuff. So, and I think the stepmother didn't even really follow the spirit of the will
Mm-hmm.
because, well, for one, stealing the money that he was entitled to, but two, the fact that the father wanted him to have the house, which probably means that he also wanted his son to live there if he wanted to, just not give it away in case the OP's husband's mother.
Right. It sounded like he was entrusting the son's care to her because he made this when OP's
Mm-hmm.
husband was still a minor, um, and wanted to essentially make sure that both his wife and son were protected, and it ended up backfiring in that respect.
Yeah. But let me know what you folks think. So anyhow, take care and good luck. And Rely 11111 says, life tenant is the term you're looking for. Basically, the property title is owned by one person, but the life tenant can live there for the rest of their life. And OP replies, we're learning that it's pretty common. I think that my father-in-law might have assumed his wife would keep some kind of relationship with my husband, but it didn't happen. And Co Boyles says, he was the better man for the last 30 years of her stealing his stuff and his inheritance. This money is legally and morally owed to him. I hope that he has enjoyed the house and that it's not in too rough of a shape after all this time. And OP replies, I hope it's in decent shape, at least enough that he won't be heartbroken when he sees it. The outside looks kept up, but we don't know what the interior is like yet. Bright C7567 says, morally and legally, the money is his. Keep the money and just block the stepsister, not the jerk. And certain aged lady says, yep, he can console any guilt by giving some of the money to a local charity like a food bank or a free clinic where it will be used well if he wants to. And OP replies, that's a good idea. We regularly donate to the local animal shelter. One of our next donations can be a more generous one. They hold an annual bake sale to gather funds and spay and neuter the local stray cats in the area. We can donate more to that event than usual. Usually we just buy a few bags of pet food a month or donate some beds. Well, that's really nice. Alright folks, and our next letter is titled, Am I a jerk for telling my wife that I want part of her property if she wants me to quit my job? My wife, a 33-year-old female, and I, a 34-year-old male, have been married for 5 years. She owns a successful real estate business that she had before we met, and I work as a project manager. We don't have kids yet, but she recently told me that she wants to start a family soon, and that when we do, she thinks that it would be best if I quit my job to manage the household and future children. She told me this while handing this to me, saying that it would help me, assuming that I would accept it instantly. And the thing that she handed him was a book called The Ultimate Stay-at-Home Dad. I was surprised because we've always been a dual income household and I enjoyed my job. She argued that since her business brings in significantly more money, it makes sense for me to stay at home while she focuses on expanding it. She also said that she would feel more comfortable knowing that when we had kids, I'm the one raising them instead of relying on daycare or a nanny. I told her that I would consider it, but if I gave up my career, I would want to be legally entitled to a share of her business. If our marriage lasts forever, it wouldn't matter, but if we ever divorce, then I would be giving up my career advancement while her business kept growing. She was shocked and said that I should trust her and that this felt transactional. I tried to explain that this isn't about not trusting her. I love her, but if I leave the workforce, I would lose earnings potential while her wealth increased. I'm fine with making sacrifices for our family, but I want some security in return. When I mentioned this to a couple of friends, they said that I was being greedy and acting like I was planning for a marriage to fail. One even said that I should be grateful that she's offering to support me at all. I'm starting to wonder if I am being too cold or calculating about this. Am I the jerk? All right, folks. What do you think?
No, not the jerk, and do not compromise on this. I strongly recommend if someone is going to be in a position where they are wholly financially dependent on another person, that they have some kind of asset of their own, whether that's a stake in the business or, some kind of money set aside from before, just so that you do not end up in a situation where you cannot leave and cannot support yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is a matter of, we've had very similar stories like this where the genders were reversed, and my advice to OP is exactly what I would give to the people in those swapped situations. is really important for you to be able to progress in your career if or have some kind of security net just in case things fail, right? And given that OP doesn't even sound too keen on giving up their career,
Hmm.
I think that it's one of these things where OP should really seriously consider this before doing so.
Absolutely. I was going to say the same thing, you know. And it seems it's always the partner who, not always, but, you know, so often it's the partner who would suffer no hardships. If there was a divorce, who's like, oh, yeah, you need to just trust me, stay at home, quit your job, and trust that things will be okay.
Yeah.
And like, trust doesn't pay the bills.
Well, that's just it. And it's like it's easy to trust your partner now, but unfortunately, people get really nasty in divorces a lot of times. And that's not always the case. Sometimes people divorce amicably, but how many stories have we seen where there's just an vindictive person who's divorcing someone else?
Right. Well, and you have no idea how having children is going to change you two as people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if she's expecting OP to do literally all the childcare and not pitching in, like that's probably going to reach burnout level very quickly.
Yeah, and then what's OP going to do, right? They're not going to have a way of getting out. They're not going to be able to financially support themselves. So they're kind of stuck there, be at their wife's whim if the workload becomes uneven or unequitable, right? And just as anyone deserves to have an equitable work level of work in a relationship, he deserves that as well, right? So if things become unfair where he's doing all the cleaning, all the childcare, all the chores while she's building her business, and then he just gets tired of it one day, what's he supposed to do if he wants to leave that
Right.
arrangement, right?
Exactly. You know, relationships are about compromises. It sounds like OP is willing to make plenty of compromises, but his partner isn't in return. And so, OP, I would think long and hard about starting a family with someone who seems affronted at the idea of making any kind of sacrifice for you.
Yeah. But let me know what you folks think. So anyhow, take care and good luck. And Zookeeper Game Wise 774 says, not a jerk. Reddit is full of people telling women not to become stay-at-home moms because of the lack of financial security it causes. And OP replies, you're right. When I asked my friends what they would think if the situation were reversed, they fell silent. I don't mind taking care of the house and my children, but I do want to secure my future. Alright folks, and our next letter is titled, Am I a Jerk for Demanding That My Neighbor Pay After Their Dog Ruined My Garden? I'm a 24-year-old male and I've spent years crafting a beautiful backyard garden, and it's not just a few plants. I have carefully designed a space with rare flowers, a small fountain, and a vegetable patch garden, and it's my biggest passion, and I put a lot of time and money into maintaining it, and my yard is fenced in, and I have clear signs that say private property and to keep out. My neighbor, we'll call them Mike, has a large dog named Rocky. Rocky is very enthusiastic and energetic and often runs loose in the neighborhood, and I've warned Mike before to keep him on the leash or to make sure that his yard is properly secured, but he always shrugs it off and says that his dog is friendly, so not to worry. Well, a few days ago, I come home and I find my backyard completely ruined. Rocky has somehow gotten in, and most likely by digging underneath the fence, and trampled my flower beds, knocked over the fountain, and dug up my vegetable patch. Several of my rare plants, which I had spent years growing, were destroyed. When I confronted Mike about it, he apologized, but he says that a dog is just a dog and things happen. I told him that his dog caused real damage and that I expected him to pay for the repairs, and the total cost to fix everything is around $3,500, considering the plant's soil and restoring the fountain. Mike refuses to pay, saying that it's not fair to blame an animal and that I should have had a stronger fence if I didn't want anything to happen. And some of my friends think that I should just let it go, but others believe that Mike is completely responsible for what happened. So am I wrong for demanding that my neighbor cover the damage after his dog ruined my garden? All right, folks, what do you think?
Not the jerk. It was not your responsibility. Like, Opie had a fence up, and that's where it begins and ends. You know, a lot of places have leash laws, and so probably the neighbor was violating this by not keeping the dog on a leash and letting them run wild. Um, so, I mean, I guess you could take the neighbor to small claims court. You could also try, you know, if you have homeowners insurance, filing an insurance claim potentially.
Yeah. I mean, I think the small claims court would probably be the best place to start off.
Yeah.
I do think that if that fails, then a homeowner's claim would probably also cover a lot of this damage. And maybe even his homeowner's insurance would cover a claim like this. I'm not really sure.
Hmm.
But I think at the end of the day, Mike needs to understand that his dog is the thing that created the damage and he's responsible for that damage, right? I mean, we've had a lot of stories where children will come into someone's house and break things and damage things, and this is very similar, right? The
Hmm.
person who's the guardian of an animal or a child is the one who is responsible for any damages created by that animal or child, right? So I think that it's a hard lesson that Mike maybe needs to learn to, uh, train their dog a little better. I don't know. The fact that the dog dug under the fence does give me a little bit of sympathy towards Mike here, because if this was, for instance, if Mike's yard is fenced in, right, and the dog just decided to dig out of it, that's not something that Mike really could have done a whole lot about.
Well, he could have kept an eye on the dog and had them on a leash that was short enough that they can't dig under the fence.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people will keep their pets unleashed in the backyard, right? And I don't think that's unreasonable. But if what OP is saying, this dog is like running free range around the neighborhood, and they weren't really fenced into Mike's yard or anything like that, and they decided to just dig underneath OP's fence, I'm even less sympathetic towards Mike at that point in time. So, but let me know what you folks think, though. So anyhow, take care and good luck. All right, folks, it is tea time. Grab your beverages of choice. I've got some tea right here, and Amber, she has a joke.
Why did the chemist adopt a dog?
Well, the chemist adopt a dog because they wanted to do that barking dog chemistry experiment, and they didn't realize that they didn't actually need a dog to do that. They found out too late, so now they have two things that are barking.
I have no idea what barking dog experiment you're talking about.
I do.
But they wanted a new lab.
Ah, it's very good. I like it. I like it a lot.
Today is National Puppy Day, Cuddly Kitten Day, and Chips and Dip Day.
Ooh, don't eat one of those, or two of those.
Yeah.
Two.
Yeah.
And I have Earl Grey. Pick one to eat.
Just the chips and dip.
All right, folks, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for watching. Happy Special Sunday, folks. And you know what makes it special? You do, and Amber does too.
Brian does too.
Folks, we have a live stream coming up on Friday. We hope to see you then. Amber, we need some kind of moral advice and or guidance, and please have it on property.
While good relationships are founded on trust, it is important to make sure you are protected financially and property-wise in case things go south.
Indeed, indeed. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you all tomorrow.
Bye!